Bonjour, Kinamagianene Ireland and Dijnakas, and welcome to this week's edition of our Week at a Glance videos featuring week 15. Good afternoon and welcome to this weekend's edition, being recorded on the Saturday before the new week starts. And you can see that is contact information. Some students have reached out using these web addresses. If you need to email me and you can't remember mireland@segchip.org, always remember that your students can access their Google Classroom on any device that supports it using their @segchipschool.net email addresses. If you're going to use the Google Voice number, I do ask that you include your name and the student's name. And please understand that because I don't necessarily automatically know who's behind the phone, there may be some pieces that I request that we talk in person. But quick questions are very doable there. We have the newsletter that was sent home on Friday and will be emailed along with the link to this video. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We have the December breakfast and lunch menu, and then some older content at this point. Let's go right into our newsletter today. There are 2 field trips coming up next week. The first one is we'll be visiting Shepherd Middle School on Tuesday. We'll be meeting the K-12 staff in that building, touring the school, and also having lunch. With their lunch being after ours, it is very possible your student may choose to eat twice, just making you aware of that. After these tours, it's not a bad idea to sit down with your student, discuss where they're at as far as where to go to school. You may have already made a decision. That's awesome. But if you're going to be considering a place like Renaissance, you need to fill out some paperwork sooner than later, as they do fill up and end up with a waiting list. You could always, if you're considering Renaissance, sign up there and then make a decision later and opt to go to the public school. There will be a window as well if you're in Mount Pleasant and want to go to Shepherd or vice versa for schools of choice. And so it's a great idea to start really contemplating that and what you're going to do. We'll also be visiting Thursday, as all of Weemagiquad will be, the Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm near Clare. There is a passive permission slip that went home. I do not need it back if your student can go. Please only send it back if you do not want your student to attend. Students are permitted but not required to bring up to $20 for the gift shop. Some students do, many don't. But please understand this is an outdoor field trip and students should be dressed for that kind of environment. Wouldn't wear your best pair of J's when we're outside. Should have hat, coat, maybe even gloves. Boots are welcome as well. I'm going to try to highlight literacy in these newsletters and videos throughout the remainder of the year. And I always put the recommendation that students should read for 20 minutes a day and or write for 10, 15 minutes a day, just to develop those skills that are going to help them be successful down the road. That's still in place. This week, I've decided to include the fact that we are working on an opinion essay over the next 2 weeks to build up their ability to use reasons and explanations. Ask them about things at home and in their community, and ask them to explain their thoughts while providing reasons and evidence about them. Doesn't have to be super heavy. It could be what they want for dinner and give us the reasons why and explain it. Those kind of skills will translate over into their writing. Homework is a regular part of our experience in middle school and here at Weemagiquad. I do send home purposeful homework on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but any assignment that they don't complete during the day, and that's often going to be math in particular, they should be bringing home in their homework folders and returning. I do ask that you ask your students about their homework folders on a daily basis. They may not always have anything in it if they've done what they need to do in the school building. That's also where I'm going to send home notes. But some students are really excellent at bringing these back and forth. And some students could use your encouragement at home. A lot of times I hear, I don't have it, it's at home. It should be in their backpack and going back and forth every day. The weather is changing, or has it changed? I don't know, depends on the day. Temperatures can range from comfortable to mind-numbingly cold, especially when that wind is a-blowing. Please make sure students arrive at school with clothing that's appropriate for that day's temperatures. I have some students who love to try to come in shorts. That's great for the gym class. Not so great during the rest of the day when there's always the possibility of a fire drill or some odd reason that we might have to leave the building. Our recess is outside. So make sure your students have what's necessary to keep warm and comfortable outside. Scholastic Book Fair will be coming back to Wemochekwa for the first time. You've seen these over at the Academy building for many years. And just in time for the holidays, we will be hosting one here beginning on December 12th. So you got a few more days yet. And that'll run through the 20th or 21st. I'll have to double check that date. There probably will be more information coming soon, as there's usually an online option. But we will be hosting it in the lounge, so it's an opportunity to come in and check out Wemochekwa while you're here. Come on and visit us, buy your students or a family friend or whoever, or yourself, some cool new books. And while on the topic of book fairs, the Isabella County Book Fair continues at the Mount Pleasant Discovery Museum. That's on Remus Road, just east of Isabella, and I'll bring up that flyer real fast for you. That is through the 8th, so through tomorrow, Sunday. Goes from 10 to 6, and there are free books. So please take advantage of that if you can. Honestly, I might have to run over there and see what's available too. But it's definitely a great idea. They may be used, but they can be a great asset in any home. What are we learning? We are engaged with a chapter on adding and subtracting decimals. And the thing for those of you at home, the easiest thing to remind you of is all I need them really to do is line up their decimal points and make sure that their difference or sum has one. Other than that, it's the same rules as adding and subtracting whole numbers. I do encourage students to obtain multiplication flashcards. Math fact fluency is not the strongest with our group, and because kids love to use calculators and they don't memorize in the same way that we used to or understand the rules and the cheats to know, like, hey, if I do this, I just got to move a 0 or whatever it may be. I do recommend you just use the dollar store version. The difference between those and ones at a more expensive store is just the cost, because 5 times 7 is still 35, regardless of the cost of the paper it's printed on. Language arts, we're still engaged with a unit on inventors and innovation. Social studies, we're looking at the first group of major European colonizers throughout North America. Science, we'll be wrapping up our unit on the water cycle. There will be a test this upcoming. Actually, it's either going to be the very end of this week or more than likely now it'll be early in the next week, just making sure that we have everything kind of prepped and ready and that they have the understanding necessary to be successful. And you can see at the bottom some of our vocabulary. Some of them kind of relate to the seasonal foods like squash. Some of them relate to field trips like the caribou and reindeer and the blue jay. Stars, as we're looking at space in one part of in some of our readings, and then a coat and jacket because, well, frankly, I need to wear one more often. The hoodie does not always get it done. Finally, in this week's episode, let's look at our learning plan. It's always a good idea to have this available, even if it's just in your email, to look and say, hey, to your student, how did the lesson 7 go today? Or what did you learn about Ponce de Leon and Hernan Cortez or De La Salle. It gives you an opening for some conversations. These are always subject to change as, some things go quicker, some take longer, but this is kind of the goal for the week. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. Looks like it's a little less frigid than it was a few days ago. Good weekend to relax, read a little bit, maybe for 20 minutes. Talk about opinions. Go get a free book from Mount Pleasant Discovery Museum. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net or mireland@sagchip.org. In all honesty, during the school day, the sagchip.org is the better choice. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and we'll be back with next week's episode this coming weekend. Have a minute, Gijigad, Minwa, Mama P.